Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I'm going to be talking about Big Little Lies, Season 1, Episode 7. It is called You Get What You Need. And it is, of course, the season finale. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. So, yeah, finale time. Just in time, in fact, for Season 2. This will be going up the day of the new season premiering. I'm recording this the night before. So, yes, So season 2, we'll have season 2's first review up in a couple of days' time, or less even. I suppose I have to start with the big thing, right? I have to start with the ending. I have to sort of, or at least start with that plot, because I mean, once again, we're really talking about Celeste and Perry, like, who certainly with the finale kind of solidifies that they were the central, most important plot. Not that the others weren't important, just in the sense that they are definitely the central focus. They're the one where a lot of it hinges on. They're the plot that kind of is the main driving force, and at least late on in the season. And yeah, it starts off fantastically. Once again, Perry's been abusive, but it does this great thing in the direction where it focuses on the sound coming out of this, I think, an air duct or air vent or whatever. And we return to this shot later, and we see that their kids are actually hearing this, but they're putting their headphones on to mask it. And again, it's just we start off in this situation again. Celeste is on the floor. It's very disturbing. She ends up, after this, going straight to the therapist, and the therapist try to give her advice, and she's more distraught this time. Not to gloss over, of course, the scene where young Max almost catches them, sort of comes in, and Perry has to kind of run out and kind of stop him and pretend everything's okay, kind of thing. So we have that going on, but and she kind of agrees that she's going to do it. She agrees that she's getting ready. We have this montage of Celeste getting the apartment ready, making sure there's beds for the kids, stocking the fridge, everything that the therapist told her to do. And it's very emotional for her. She breaks down, and she cries as she's doing this. She's holding her stomach a lot because that's where she was kicked, or punched rather. She was punched there. I'm thinking of later on in the episode, but she was punched at the start of the episode in her stomach. And all of this, again, it's the natural kind of build up of where it's been going, and implying that the kids are hearing, because that's the other thing the therapist says when she goes to see her, is that before he starts hitting the children, and she kind of defends him again, says no, he doesn't do that, and she's like, no, he will, he might not yet, but he will. And she's in denial that it's affecting the children. She is convinced that it's not affecting her children. And that kind of leads us to, I guess I'm bringing in some of the other plots because I kind of have to here, because everything ends up interjecting with them, is that we do find out the culprit behind Amabella. Ziggy's pretending to stay home from school. He's not pretending to stay home from school. He's staying home from school by pretending to be sick. That's what I meant to say. And, Jane kind of calls him out on it and says, what's up? Well, why do you not want to go in? Is this to do with, the kids not being friends with you, kind of thing? And he's like, no, I've got tons of friends. And he even mentions Amabella's name. And she's like, do you know who's hurting Amabella? And he kind of he indicates that he does, but he's not supposed to say because she made him promise not to say because she's scared. And she gets around this by kind of convincing him that, okay, you made a promise not to tell anyone, but you didn't make a promise not to point at someone. So, which is very neat because it ties back into that orientation scene back in episode 1 where he was pointed at, right? It's the pointing's coming back. She's almost bringing that back to kind of find out who's really behind it. And he points at Max. He points at Celeste and Perry's son. And this makes so much thematic sense. This is a perfect reveal. I know I was a little bit concerned in the middle that maybe an adult was behind it, because I thought it was going to get really dark, as if it wasn't dark enough already. But the idea that this is rubbing off on his son, that this behavior is manifesting in his son, is just genius. I immediately liked this. I immediately liked what this was doing. And Jane calls up Celeste and wants to tell her to her face. She doesn't want to go to school first or go to the other parent. She wants to tell Celeste face to face, hey, Ziggy pointed to Max. and kind of explains that she thinks she's telling the truth. It sounds like he is telling the truth. And, obviously Celeste is shocked for a second. And, depending on, if this was earlier on the show, she might have, tried to fight back in the same way that Jane fought back. Or the same way that Renata, you would think, might fight back if she was accused of this, given how we've seen her react with everything else. But she just kind of stands there and contemplates it and really takes it in. And, talks about, because it's not just Amabella, it's, it's another girl as well that he pushed down the stairs. And Jane tries to comfort her, and Jane says, kids, they can be bullies at times, they grow out of it, you just have to, whatever. And Celeste says, some don't. Sometimes they don't. And it's the moment, it's like she was already preparing the apartment, she was already getting that ready, but this is kind of the moment where she realized that it's affected her children. That was the one thing she was denying up until this point. This is the final straw, as it were. And she goes home and she talks to Max, and she's, she asks him to be honest, and she assures him that, if you've done something wrong, people make mistakes, it's not the end of the world, we'll get past it, you can be better, and, typical, kid parent stuff, but emotional. And so all this is setting up, and it's the final straw for this, and it's a perfect reveal because, like I say, it makes sense because of thematically what we're doing, and it really neatly ties itself into this other plot. It ties in this plot that Celeste has had almost nothing to do with the entire season, and not in a way that feels forced, not in a way that feels like it doesn't feel like, oh, this is just a connection just so that they connect. It feels so natural and makes so much sense. And from there, we've been building up to this trivia night, this Elvis and Audrey Hepburn trivia night, and we see everyone getting ready, but mainly Celeste and Perry we're talking about. The scene where your heart just kind of sinks is when Perry comes in and he's, Celeste is with the boys, one of them's got a loose tooth, and he's like, oh, what's this about loose tooth? He's like, oh, a so-and-so called, I can't remember the name, I'll say Jenny. I mean, I don't remember what the name was. He's like, oh, Jenny left a message. And she's like, Jenny? I don't know a Jenny. And there's a sort of pause because he's talking to the boys as well, sort of in between. And he's like, oh, property manager. And he doesn't even look at her as he says this. He says, that they're calling to check that they're putting the smoke alarms in the apartment on Monday. And then he looks at her. And this scene is so well done. And it was earlier on, I think it's when, maybe when Celeste finds out, there's another cut to the sound of the beating from the start of the episode coming through the vent. Except this time we see Max actually is paying attention to it. And, I like that moment in direction, which is why I thought of it. But the direction here is so good. The way it handles the beats between the actors in this, they can't really act out because they're in front of the kids. So they just kind of have to go through the motions, but it feels so tense. And then the other moment, of course, that feels really tense is when they're a little bit late, and when they're pulling up to the party, Perry decides not to stop. He drives straight on and goes around to some car park. But as soon as he starts driving away, and she's like, "Why? Where are we going?" You begin to worry. There's a natural tension here because what is he considering doing? If he's considering something at all, what does he have in mind? Where could this lead? Because we know there's a murder coming up. There's a murder happening. We've been knowing this since episode 1. That on this trivia night, there's going to be a murder. And he's typical guy Perry. He's like, "Were you going to tell me?" And immediately says, "I know I've got these demons, and I'm fighting them. I agree, this has to change. But for you to all of a sudden," and she's like, "No, it's not all of a sudden. This has been building for a long time." And, he even says, one of the things that Celeste had said a lot in therapy, "You've been violent too." And she's like, "Well, yeah, only in retaliation to you." Like, she's done pretending that she is equal in this, that she is just as guilty as he is. She's ready to admit that no, that was in retaliation. I am clearly the victim between the two of us here. There's no debate in this. And keep in mind at this point he's locked the car doors. She can't get out. And the reason why she does get out is because it just so happens that Renata and Gordon kind of peek up and say hi, and that at the window. And she gets out, and she kind of immediately just bolts to the party as quick as she can in her heels, and he's kind of wandering in after, trying to like get to her. And what I really like about this whole section of the episode is it really feels that this how do I describe this? Like, there's this threat of him with her, but there's people everywhere. And he's constantly trying to get to her, but he keeps being, spoken to by other fathers, other mothers, or, at the party, who are wanting to like make small talk with him, and he's having to pretend to be okay, but he's trying to get to her. And you feel like, keep in front of everyone, that's probably the safest place right now, kind of thing. So full of tension, and Gordon's not very helpful. He's just like trying to get him to drink more. And we'll talk about Gordon a little bit later, but and it's all kind of boiling over, and it's this by this point in the episode, Madeline and Jane are off at the staircase where we know the murder happens, because Madeline gets upset whilst Ed's singing, because he's singing this romantic song. He's kind of gesturing that it's looking at her as if it's about her, and she can't take it anymore because of the affair. But we'll get into that a little bit more later. But so they're already around there, and then Celeste tells Renata about Max, about him being the one that was hurting Amabella, and this leads to Renata actually coming round to see Jane to tell her that she's sorry for blaming Ziggy and apologizing for her behavior. And Madeline even kind of gets in on the apology train a little bit and says you're a big person, kind of thing. So everyone's kind of at this place, and But by this point, like, four of the ladies are there, and then the one who's not, which is Bonnie, who eventually goes down there because she actually sees Celeste go off looking worried, and then watches Perry go off kind of in that direction as well. I think there's some heavy implications here that Bonnie recognizes what assault, or not assault. I mean, she would recognize what assault looks like, but what I meant to say is that she recognizes the potential for abuse. Like, she recognizes the body language, she recognizes what this looks like, and by the time she gets down there, all hell's broken loose. And he comes down, and I'm being a lot more descriptive about action in this episode. Like, I'm just kind of reiterating what happened in the scene, because I'm building up to the moment. I want to talk about, because I think this scene is wonderful for the most part in a lot of ways. It's wonderful because when he comes in, and of course, obviously the episode actually cuts away from the scene before the action really starts. We see what the action was sort of cut up later through a montage, which reveals what really happened on the staircase. And Perry shows up and he's like, "Hey Celeste, we need to go talk about this." And he gets really snappy with Renata. "I'm talking to my wife." And the tone is completely changed. And keep in mind, from Madeline's point of view, like, their marriage has been fine. She's kind of been ambivalent to what's been going on, and it's kind of escalating. And what I like later on, once he starts attacking Celeste, and in turn kind of all of them, because they all kind of start to try and fight him off. So he's kind of pushing and punching at a lot of them. I really like this scene when we see it later on intercut, because it really has this feeling of all of them really unite to try and like fight back the awful person, the villain. This character who has really come to represent like the most toxic of male entities. And of course, eventually Bonnie like runs up and pushes him down the stairs, and that's who they're protecting when they all lie. It was Bonnie technically who's the murderer, and as the police talk about, they're talking about how it's basically a self-defense. It'll be community service, probably not even a lot of it because of the situation that Celeste is in, but they don't know it's Bonnie. But they're protecting Bonnie. Bonnie's the one who does this. And it's this weird experience that unites them all, and it's this idea of like going back to the scene like an episode or two ago with them all, the three of them running together. Now it's extended to Renata and Bonnie, and it's a really powerful scene because of that. I really like that element of it. The way that the scene's directed, both before the cut and then later on in the montage when we see the full action play out, is really, really good. The one part I don't like, and it's probably obvious because you've seen the episode if you're watching me talk about this, the one part I don't like is the reveal. And It's maybe the only thing that I don't like in the entire show. And it's a shame because it's at the ending. And I think the rest of this episode is fantastic. I think the rest of this episode, the way it's shot is fantastic. The way the performances play out are fantastic. Everything with Celeste and Perry and the tension of him knowing about the apartment and trying to confront her about it, both in the car and then at the party. The way, the feeling, the pit of your stomach that entire time is phenomenal. So I don't want this to like dampen all my positivity, because I don't mean it to be like that. But the reveal here that Perry is Jane's rapist immediately did not sit with me. And the moment itself is well executed in terms of the direction and performances. I do love that Jane like recognizes him, and she just gives Madeline this look, and Madeline just kind of gets it. And then she looks at Celeste, who's looking at both of them, and then Celeste gets it. I love that the three of them who know about... Obviously, Renata wouldn't get it because she doesn't know what's happened in Jane's past, necessarily, to the same extent that they have. But they get it. They understand it. And that's really effectively done. But the actual reveal itself, that he's the rapist and Ziggy's father, so Max and Ziggy are actually related, they're brothers, or half-brothers, feels unnecessary to me. It feels unnecessary because I think everything else I loved about this scene, you didn't need this to make it work like that. And then on top of that, I think it's unnecessary because I don't think that Jane needed... Like, I don't think we needed to find out who he was. Like, I actually think there was more strength in it, or and when I say strength in the plot and strength in the message of the show, that we didn't find out that it was this mystery she could never really complete, and not because like it's impossible in real life to to get that kind of closure, but because for Jane, what's going to heal her is not knowing who he is or where he is. What's going to heal her is her moving on. It's her accepting that maybe she can't have revenge. It's her accepting to find strength in the people around her. It's her accepting to move on and date the guy from the coffee shop, which, by the way, I did laugh out loud when Jane was like, "You're not gay?" And he's like, "What?" That was a great joke, because I'm pretty sure it was either episode 1 or 2 where Madeline said he was gay, and that's a really funny joke to me. They never mentioned it again. It wasn't like a running thing all season. They just like went quiet on it, and then at the very last episode they have the payoff to it. I really like that. But that's Jane moving on. That's Jane getting healthier. That's her closure as a character arc. So I don't think it's necessary. I felt like Jane's story between like her accepting a date, between her getting the truth from Ziggy and actually being able to to tell this to Celeste, and especially make amends with Renata, I felt like her story was for her own plot was kind of done, and I don't think we needed this resolution. And then the actual just twist itself that Perry's also the same monster who did this. I'll be honest, it feels a little bit convoluted and a bit trashy. To me, it feels like a really cheap TV twist, or I guess in this case, a really cheap book twist, in the novel. I don't... It just... Everything else in this show does not feel like that. Everything else in this show feels so thought out and so authentic in its execution and what it's doing. This reveal is the one sort of blemish, I think, where it feels like, no, you wanted the cheap TV, like, gotcha moment. And I don't think it needed it. I really don't. And especially since the reveal of who the child abuser was earlier on with Max, I thought that was a perfect reveal that made complete sense. And this just feels like, maybe if I go back and watch again, maybe there'll be like a hint or two that makes more sense. But, it's not like it was even in this town that this happened, like, and I know Perry travels a lot, and like it is in the same state, I think, if I remember right. But like, like, this is such a coincidence. It's such a coincidence. And I am okay with starting your story with a coincidence, because that's what kicks the story off, because things just happen. But ending your story with a coincidence that connects two things that weren't connected before can go really poorly. And I think this reveal for me just felt kind of cheap. even though the execution and everything around it and how it was handled is all very good. I just think the core reveal that he's also Jane's rapist just did not sit well with me, which is a shame. But like I say, I love everything else about the execution of the moment itself, and all the ladies banding together and finding strength in each other to survive, kind of thing. Like all that kind of obvious symbolism, I really liked. I thought it was well handled. And I suppose I should rewind, and obviously there's a funeral scene. And we ended the show, or the season rather, because it was meant to be a miniseries at first, and now there's a season 2. But with all the kids around the beach, all happy, all the mothers together, and there's a lot of closure in this episode. Madeline has a great zinger for Nathan when Nathan's talking about going to like a teenage therapist for Abby, and talks about how divorce can be stressful for a kid, and Madeline says, "Oh, I wish I knew that when I walked out." Oh wait, did I? And it's this zinger, but it actually follows up with him saying, "I actually root for you," and she's like, "Oh, I appreciate that." There's a lot of little closure moments in this episode, which is great, because it's one of those things. Because again, Madeline and Ed, like, they didn't feel the need to have the big conversation. Like I actually had the impression last episode that Ed kind of knew and just didn't want to hear about it from the conversation. This episode felt a little bit different in that sense, where Madeline was still terrified of him finding out and was getting really emotional about it. And I think she'll find the courage. I mean, it's maybe something we'll get in season 2. It's her just flat out telling Ed about the affair, but I thought again the moment worked really well, where she runs off crying when he's singing Elvis, and full of those little beats. There's a scene where she goes to see the Joseph in the theater, and it turns into a bit of a fight. He gets kind of aggressive, very entitled as well. Emotions are running high, and I think that ultimately why Madeline keeps going back to see him to try and make it clear that it's over is guilt. Like, it's not so much that she really has to talk to Joseph again, it's that instead of talking to Ed, because that's the thing that's really scary, she'd rather confront everything else around it to try and stop it from getting to Ed, or make her feel better about it at least. So I mean, we talked about Jane's plot for the most part because it's mostly connected to Celeste, but she has accepted date, and Ziggy seems happy to see Mr. Waiter, whose name I can't remember. I don't think I ever learned his name. But this seems like a nice happy date, and she's all excited. I actually have to make a confession here about this. It wasn't until this episode where I saw them all in their getting ready and going to the party where I realized, because I actually thought that what's her name, Woodley, Shailene, yeah, Shailene Woodley. I actually didn't realize until this episode that she was in the opening credits. I thought that she wasn't there because at the end of the opening credits, where they're all walking towards the camera, the one that turned out to be her, because now I see her dressed up this way in this episode, I thought was I think she's a mum, one of the mums who's in the interview segments. And don't get me wrong, I thought it was weird that she was in this little walk thing at the end and Shailene Woodley wasn't, given that she's such a major character. And I feel kind of silly now, but I genuinely did not recognize her in those opening credits. It wasn't until I actually saw her in that dress with that hair at the end of this episode where I went, "Oh, that was her." She wasn't the opening titles the whole time. All right, because I recognized everyone else. Everyone else made sense to me. But yeah, so I thought I'd confess that. So no, the show was great. The finale was great. I just didn't like that twist. It's not enough to dampen it that much. It doesn't affect the drama that we got between him and Celeste all season. It doesn't affect other stuff. It's just a really cheap twist to me. And I think it would be stronger without it. I do. But and there's some more dick measuring with Nathan and Ed, fighting about who's the better singer, and other stuff going on. But ultimately, I think the big stuff, because it's funny, if you pay attention to the runtime, the party stuff starts maybe 20 to 25 minutes in. So there's a good 30 minutes of the episode where that party's going on. They really spend a lot of time during it, but like I say, it's to its benefit because there's a lot of tension and people, mainly Perry and Celeste kind of running from each other and all sorts of things like that, which really adds up to the entertainment value of the episode. But no, season's very good. Season is very, very, very good. It's got really strong characters who, by the time I got to episode 3, say, I was really starting to analyze them in really great ways. We should probably mention Abby decided not to go through with the auction because it was pointed out to her, as she says, that the controversy of what she's doing would actually overshadow the cause. So she's chosen not to. But yeah, so it's a very closed off season though, so it makes me really curious about what season 2 is going to be. So presumably there'll be a completely new mystery, maybe, if they even want to do a mystery. Because honestly, the mystery part of this show was kind of the least relevant and least important. Like, it really didn't matter that much. Like, I almost forgot about the mystery of the murder. It's not really the important part of the show. It's the human drama, and it's the. I guess the real question now is but at the end of the show, it feels like all the major mothers in the show, all 5 of them, are on a good terms with each other. And there was so much conflict this season between Renata and some of the others, and then Bonnie and Madeline obviously had their wedge between them, which makes me think that Meryl Streep, who's in season 2, it makes me think she has to be the wrench. She has to be the wrench in the work. She has to be the character who comes in and damages the cam. She has to be the one that causes some confrontations. Whether or not she's just the villain and everyone else is against her, or whether or not she drives a wedge between other people, who's to say? I don't know. But that would be my guess, is that she's going to be, causing some waves, shall we say. Causing some waves. Yeah. Oh, I should mention the scene where Gordon comes and tries to kind of threaten Jane because of the eye gouging, which Renata was already over, it's worth mentioning, but he had to show up and be like, ugh, we'll get a restraining order on you, so don't do that again to my wife, blah, blah, blah. He's acting all manly, or he thinks he is anyway, and he's kind of, Gordon I thought was a fairly sensible character up until this point, but this episode made him look a bit of a dick, so that's a shame. Yeah, I think the husbands in this show are kind of interesting because they don't make them all look like a bunch of, obviously let's not include Perry in this because Perry's of course a very particular character, but I'm thinking Ed, Nathan, and Gordon. They all have faults. They all have decent moments as well, but they do have this sort of fun with them where they're all. Clearly this is a show that's aimed and is based around the female characters. It very much is. Is very much about their struggle. It's very much about their stories, and the male characters are there to assist in that, of course. But it's interesting to me just sort of analyzing how it frames them differently, because it's not because this is not me saying the female characters are all presented as perfect people. They're not. I mean, hell, most of what I talked about last episode was the admission that they're not perfect, and that's a big part of the story last episode, especially Madeline. It's more so to me that in this story, when it's important towards the end, because the male characters are kind of they don't know what's going on. None of them know about this. It's kind of that idea where when something serious happens, everyone kind of sobers up and sort of hopefully acts more responsible and grown up, right? But they're unaware. They're all, Nathan and Ed are having a dick measuring contest. Gordon's pointing these finger guns at the waiter because he upset him for kicking him out of the coffee shop, and all that's going on. And the ladies are in this serious situation, and they have to band together to protect themselves. Because ultimately, in their time of need right now, their husbands are nowhere to be goddamn found. They're on their own. They have to fight on their own. And I think there was some message in there that's kind of empowering. I not so much. And it's not so much that like they're always going to have to fight on their own, but the idea is that sometimes they're going to have to, and they have the strength to do that, and they shouldn't be afraid to admit they have the strength to do that. So I think there's some really great themes in this show, and obviously a lot of it was about lying, hence the title, Big Little Lies. So yeah, there you go. That's season 1 of Big Little Lies. Hopefully, I feel this was the worst review out of the 7. I feel like I spent so much time just trying to explain the plot of the first half of this that it wasn't as good to listen to. But hopefully, I offered some insights over the course of the season. Hopefully, I did the show some justice with my commentary. But I will be back with season 2 very soon, very, very soon. And I won't be alone. I will be joined with Tara, who had already seen season 1, which is why she didn't do this season with me, so that I could speculate and theorize and whatnot. But she will be joining me for discussing season 2, with the exception of episode 2, because episode 2, she's moving house, so she'll be missing 1 week. But she will be on board for season 2, so there'll be 2 of us talking back and forth. Which should hopefully make for even better reviews than these were. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed these. So thank you very much for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of the season in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. You can get me personally on Twitter at Wooble89. You can also, of course, support us over in patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and that helps keep the reviews coming, and also gets you some bonuses, some exclusives, all that kind of thing. Go have a look and see if there's anything that tickles your fancy. As for other stuff we're doing, obviously Big Little Lies Season 2 is getting reviewed, which is obviously relevant to you if you're watching this. In terms of other content, me and Connor are reviewing The Handmaid's Tale Season 3. We also obviously did Season 1 and 2, so you can check out all those. And then next week, Too Old to Die Young starts at on Amazon Prime, which me and Connor will also be reviewing, so check out that if you're interested in a artsy, independent looking TV show from Amazon, from Nicholas Winding Refn, who directed Drive and Only God Forgives and Neon Demon. If that sounds appealing, and it does to me and Connor, then in for a ride. But that is me. So that'll be on this channel. The Netflix reviews, though, if we're doing a Netflix show, are on the Mailed Fuzz Netflix, or is it almost cancelled Netflix reviews? I think it's just Netflix original reviews, Mailed Fuzz TV. I think that's what the feed's called. Anyway, that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?